Welcome to the BartenderHQ.com podcast, and on this week's show we are doing our predictions for 2020 as well as taking a look at how accurate people's predictions were for 2019. And on this week's show, because it's a special edition, we've got the man himself, Sam Bolton. Hello, Sam is back with us.
Hello, thank you for having me back. It's been a while.
You're so welcome, Sam. Yeah, cool. So we're going to start off looking at some predictions from the beginning of 2019. So this is an article, Cocktail Trends to Watch in 2019 on thespiritsbusiness.com that we're going to start off with. We'll kind of go through what they thought was going to happen in 2019, and then we are going to give our predictions for 2020. And in fact, the whole of the next decade. I think that's what we should do, Sam. Should go a bit more macro.
I mean, we can try. We don't have a good track record with our predictions, but we can keep going.
No, absolutely. So let's have a quick look first of all. Then this is I will include the link in the show notes to what the Spirits Business have got up there. So the first one was sherry-based cocktails. So low and no ABV cocktails have been one of the biggest trends to watch over the past year, and 2019 looks to be similarly exciting for people who don't want to go all out when it comes to booze. Now, do you think sherry actually became big in 2019?
I think it became bigger.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with this one. I think not in terms of the mass consumer market, but is it being more frequently used in specialist places? Yes, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
There are sherry bars and things like that, but I think I think more bartenders. It's more common now to see a dry sherry on a bar than it was 4 years ago.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise you when a sherry's used in a cocktail these days, which I think it certainly did for a while.
Was it a trend? Probably not. Is it become more common? Yes. So if they're, depending on how large of a scale they wanted that prediction to be, I think, it is true.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, we'll give him a point for that one. Obviously, with this, we're going to be talking mainly about UK trends more than we are about stuff that's going on in the States and stuff, although obviously the stuff that happens in the States tends to kind of come over to us a little bit as well. So let's see what we've got next. Simplifying serves. It wasn't that long ago when ostentatious garnishes and lavish glassware were the norm, but cocktail serves set to take back a paired approach. To take a pared back approach in 2019. That makes more sense. Gone will be ingredients lists as long as your arm. Instead, drink specifications will be shorter and simpler, and presentation will be taking a similar route. What do you think? Did that happen?
I think so. I think the exclusion of bars such as the Gibson and Nightjar, anywhere that Marianne Beck's worked, I think the industry is going more towards that simple, classic, easy. Even brands as well, like Seedlip and Black Cow. Every time they're posting drinks, they're always nice, simple, elegant. I think elegance has become more common than lavish.
Mm-hmm. So definitely, yeah. I think, as with a lot of these predictions, I think this was probably something that was already in process and something they picked up on that they think will get bigger. So that's fair enough. Yeah, that's also pretty good. This is a strong start for the Spirits Business.
I mean, it's also been quite safe.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. Closing the loop. So in 2018, the on-trade banished the straw. In 2019, the bar world looks ready to hone its waste reduction across the board. As the world's best bars cut down on waste, more and more venues are sure to investigate ways to make the most of what they have by reusing ingredients, repurposing empty bottles and containers. What has started in pioneering venues such as Ryan Lyon. I'm not going to try and say his full second name. Cool. Winner. His club in London and Brighton restaurant Silo, which recently installed a machine that crushes empty bottles into sand to make crockery, is now spreading to other venues to make similar practices. Okay, I don't see that many places have got bottle crushers in to make sand to make plates.
Do they not?
But yes, I think this, again, closing the loop, there's a lot of bars out there that are making good efforts to try and minimise the amount of waste and the amount of stuff that they're shipping across. How do you see it, Sam?
Yeah, I think bars are doing it. I think it's becoming less popular towards the end of the year. Like, bars aren't shouting about it as much as they used to be. I think it's slowly becoming more of the norm for us.
Yeah.
People
so that's what I was about. Yeah, I was about to say, like, do you think bars are not shouting about it as much because it's sort of expected now?
Hopefully that's the way it's going. Personally, I don't want closed loop and reusing stuff. I want using less or using none. Like
bringing less in the first place that you don't need.
Yeah, like if you're buying bottles and reusing them a million times, great. But if you're still having to, like Blue Roll, like I don't know the carbon footprint of Blue Roll, but it's almost completely unnecessary in most bars for most of the reasons that we use it. Now, there are certain reasons that you do need things like Blue Roll, like bodily fluid cleaning.
Allergy stuff?
Yeah. So, like, there are situations where it is useful. However, to clean your stations at the end of the night, you don't need to be using 2-3 rolls of Blue Roll a night. Like, we used to get in... I used to work in a bar, I think we used to get 10... So 60 Blue Rolls a week, because we have 3 bars. I'm like, that's 20 Blue Rolls per bar, like, per week. Like, what is that?
Now, there is, obviously with this is a really difficult one to actually work out exactly where the right place is to be, because obviously with that, you're using things once and it's been disposed of. You've got the transport of bringing it in every time. Obviously, if you're using... reusable cloths that are washed and things like that, yes, that's cool, but also there's then the energy that's being used in washing and the chemicals used in the cleaning and all that sort of thing. So I think you're right, there's definitely waste that doesn't need to be there with Blue Roll, but I don't know how much better it is to use reusable washed cloths because of the amount of washing and stuff. I
think, though, that the technology for washing, like, we've all seen those adverts on TV where it's like, this is how much water do you think your dishwasher uses? And then it turns out to be like one load, because it obviously recirculates the water. I think an eco wash, so like, a 30-degree wash with nowadays, machines that we use nowadays, I don't know, but I'm willing to punt and say there's considerably less energy to be used. You can buy eco-friendly chemicals that are widely available in the UK, at least. Anyway, you can get them in pretty much any Tesco. I think that's better.
Yeah, I agree.
But again, I'm assuming that.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the thing, we are not experts on this. All I am saying is that we need to probably, as an industry, make more effort to do stuff that is right and have done the research over we throw this away, so we need to eliminate it, but not think about the consequences of what you replace it with necessarily. So, like, for example, I think the stainless steel straws, which I still think are a terrible idea in any way that does any volume, because I think people are going to get impaled on them quite often, or broken teeth and things like that. I don't think that's the solution, but I think the amount of energy that goes into making one is probably huge, and I know it reduces the plastic from the oceans, which is a very, very good thing. But I don't think people have looked into like all the ramifications of actually making those things as well, necessarily. So I think there's certainly stuff to look into on those, rather than just doing the reactionary thing that we've done before.
Just that, though. But then I also think with that there's, when it comes down to cost of not buying stuff, like I haven't bought Blue Roll in 2 years that the Vanguard's been open now. We haven't. We've actually, tell a lie, we bought it once, and we had 6 delivered, and we have used 2, so we've used 1 a year. Because
so you've got some spares still. Yeah,
so because we're quite lucky in the terms that we don't have to we don't have people throw up. We've had 2 people throw up in 2 years. We're quite lucky like that. It's not a dive bar.
But you've got better at holding your shots now.
Yes, yeah. But I don't know what I'm guessing. Blue Roll costs, say, what, £8-9 a pack? I don't know.
I think it's a little bit less than that per roll, definitely. But yeah, you're talking about a roll of 6.
Or 6.
Six.
But again, like that bar I used to work in, they're probably spending say on a low end £60 a week. Times by 104 weeks, sorry, for a year. Like we
for
buy
2 years.
we buy tea towels that we replace every couple months when we feel they need replacing. And it's just like, I think from a business point of view, the reducing what you're buying and reusing, yes, that is just smart.
Yeah, completely agree. As I say, I just think we need to make sure that, as well as replacing stuff that is a bad idea, we need to make sure that what we're getting in is a much better idea or is the best possible option.
Yeah, like I do like the look of these, like these wheat straws and stuff you can get nowadays, where they basically just. But then, yeah, things like that. Like it's there are so many alternatives. However, I'm pretty sure each one of them comes with their ups and downs.
Yeah, 100%. It's all about compromise.
If your focus is plastics, then great. No matter what you buy, it's probably better.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Right, so cool. Let's get back to the spirits business. The next one of their slides is It's Okay Not to Be Okay, and this is about healthy hospo and kind of self-care for bartenders, which I think, that has also been a pretty solid trend this year, that a lot more people are talking about it. More people are talking about mental health in general, outside of hospitality as well, and I think, again, kind of jumping on the bandwagon a little bit with that, but yeah, they're right.
Yeah, I think this has probably been one of the things that although I haven't been involved in anything to do with it, I think I have seen the most personally. Being obviously, between us, we probably have a couple thousand bartenders on Facebook who we've met over the years, and seeing these people piping up and like being willing to talk about their issues, like as somebody who's had and has had many challenges throughout this year, and seeing other people being willing to vocalize it and talk about it, I think, like it is definitely becoming a real big thing. Like a friend of mine, who we should probably look again on the show, Aaron. Yeah, friend of mine, Aaron, has moved out to New Zealand, and he's basically started a weekly thing where he talks about bartenders, who they are, and the problems that they have and have faced. Cool. And I think we've always had a focus on like alcoholism and stuff within the industry, because that's always for the long time been quite a challenge, whereas other forms of mental health and issues and addiction and stuff that have always gone unnoticed. So I do think, I think that's something that personally I'm really proud of for this industry, to see that growing. And again, I've not personally been a part of any projects to do with that, but I genuinely think in the next year it will be something that I really want to get involved in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even with the focus we've had on alcoholism and stuff in the past, it's also been something that a few years back was almost celebrated. It was part of that kind of image of being a bartender, that you're a hard drinking party guy, and it can't go on forever, like, for people, and it has caused massive problems for people.
But I think like we've had conversations before about that generation of bartenders that did celebrate drugs and did celebrate drinking, and everything was to excess, everything was the party lifestyle, and nowadays it's much more common, I think, to see bartenders that are over 30 and bartenders that do have children. Do you know what I mean? And people that are in the industry and have families.
The industry's definitely grown to the point where there are bar industry jobs that can support people with families a lot more now than there were. Yeah.
I think, like I personally don't drink that much. People assume I drink loads because I work in a bar. But I think bartenders and owners and everyone in the industry is becoming more conscious of their life and making it a career now, rather than it being something you did while you were studying and while you were young. So I think, I think it's something that is really good for the industry, and it's gonna, I think it will keep going, because I think the whole generation of the millennials has pushed kind of health to more of a forefront.
Absolutely, and fitness and everything else. Yeah, I think it's absolutely.
Yeah,
I'm literally in my gym gear now.
I really hope this one keeps going.
Yep. So, next one on the list, Fermentation Experimentation. Expect to see house-made fermented drinks such as kombucha, tepache, featuring more frequently on the menus at the world's best bars. Then it goes on to tell you what they are, but I think we've got a decent idea of what that is. We will put a link in the show notes if you want to go into a bit more detail about what these things are. But have you actually seen this happening? Because this, in the bars that I've been to, I haven't. I've seen kombucha that's been bought commercially, but I haven't seen anyone kind of making their own in the bars that I go to.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been out the past year as much as I have in previous years to those kind of bars that it's talking about, so I can't properly comment on what I've seen on menus. However, yes, there's definitely more people, I think, fermenting and using them in competitions and pushing their own personal boundaries to make these kind of things, but I don't think it has made its way into bars and programs as much because they're low yield, inconsistent, like they're very hard things to get consistently right. So I don't personally, I can't think of any bar that, again, there probably is, but I can't think of anywhere that has taken that step. I mean, there are places like in Oslo, I think, is it where Monica Berg worked or used to work or whatever, where fermentation is a massive part of it.
Okay.
But yeah.
Cool, and that's actually the end of that article. So that gives us an idea of what people thought were going to be going on. Was there anything that you thought was going to happen in the last year that hasn't, or that has?
I not something that I thought of, but bloody pink gin.
It's not slowed down, has it?
No, pink gin has become the thing. What I am happy is that bartenders are slowly starting to stop that stupid argument of pink gin's got Angostura bitters in. I think that I'm glad that that's kind of out of the way, and bartenders have that little niggle in their heads when people order one, but they're not vocalizing it as much anymore.
I think that was really the bartenders that didn't like pink gin as a product, and they just wanted a reason to have an argument with someone or to show off that they knew something, and that's possibly one of the worst things about bartenders sometimes. But it is what it is.
Yeah, I think all of these kind of products that are coming out, it happened with rum when spiced rum come out. They were just they're flavored sugary variants. It's happened with gin. It happened with vodka. Gin is just the current trendy spirit for it to happen to, and it probably will happen with tequila.
It's kind of the current base, isn't it?
There already are sugary flavored tequilas out there. Cafe Patron,
Tequila Rose,
that coconut one from, is it 1800?
1800, yeah.
There are. It's not in vogue as much as the others, but it only takes one company to push it forward, and you'll end up with a million. So yeah, I think.
Do you want to give us a? Sorry.
Oh, go
on. Do you want to give us a rundown on what's gone on with you and Mead this year? Because obviously Mead has been your kind of focus this year, and it's a bit of a trend in the industry as well, I think. So you've got more insight on this than anyone else?
Yeah, I think it's growing massively. For instance, there are producers out there making liqueurs who are quite established brands, but they're only selling a couple thousand a year in the UK. And, these are, what you would perceive as large brands, but actually in terms of volume, they're not huge. One producer that I know, he sold 10,000 bottles in his first year in Mead. And I think that the industry's grown in terms of physical producers. I think we've gained about 25% more producers in 2019. I know there's been a lot more large accounts taken on. For instance, Modern Mead has just gone into a national chain around the UK. We've got another one due to come on board next year. I won't mention names just in case it doesn't happen. But yeah, I think that my personal focus for the company is going to be the on-trade, because that's where it's been the most underrepresented. I think that the market for Mead is a lot bigger than the on-trade realises, because they're not behind it, and therefore they're not trying to sell it, therefore they're not seeing people wanting to buy it. If you only sell beer, people who only want beer will come. And it's that kind of mentality. So I think it will grow massively. Like, I alone have been contacted numerous times in the last half of this year for, information, articles, help on stocking things. Like, I think it is becoming more and more grown, and as I have slowly become known for that, more opportunities are presenting themselves. So I do think that it is something that's going to keep growing. And, not every opportunity that comes my way actually fits my mead company itself. So some of them are being passed off to larger or more, smaller producers who can be a bit more lenient than what we can. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think, it's definitely on the rise. Like I said, it's growing massively. It's really hard to get actual figures, but last year we estimated around about 500,000 bottles. And I think it's probably about the same this year, dependent on one of the bigger producers if they've upscaled, which I know they were planning to produce more because they were struggling with demand, but I don't know what happened throughout the last half of the year to Christmas changed everything.
And is that 500,000 within the UK?
That was what was produced or estimated to be produced in the UK. That was but again, like, it only takes one of the big suppliers to lose a giant account, and those figures get skewed quite quickly. But yeah, I couldn't tell you distinctly how much of that was export as well, because I'm not privy to enough of those figures.
Right, so in the second half of this podcast, we are going to be talking about what we actually see happening this year in the drinks industry, what our kind of predictions are, and where we see things going. So feel free to judge us for these on the comments down at the bottom, and let us know what you think too. So Sam, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, so I've always been against the low and no ABV trend. I think it was something that was mass produced by large companies and pushed in very interesting ways onto bartenders, who then went, this is a trend, we should get behind it. And the same with the media. They went, oh, we've heard this is a trend, but then there's nothing to back it up. I don't think customers come in and order no and lows. I think they order non-alcoholics, but I don't think they actively order low alcohol ones. And if they do, it's probably not due to health. It's probably due to the fact they're driving. However, that being said, I am very much predicting that more and more, as this fake trend, I believe, has been growing and growing and growing, because more media are saying it's a trend, and more because people are saying it's a trend, it's slowly grown into what could be a trend through the industry, that I actually think now that spirits companies and product developers are going to start to make things that fit this trend more, which will then be sold into bars as part of the trend, which will then be put on menus more, which then will be bought more because they're on menus and customers will buy what you put in front of them. So I think that there will be products created that fit into no and low trends. So for instance, all the kind of knockoffs of Aperol and things like that have been coming out over the years to try and gain some of the success from them. I think those kind of aperitivos and digestifs and these kind of like things will be rebranded, repackaged to focus on like highball style serves that are low alcohol. Kind of competitors for the Pimm's Cup in the UK. I think that's cool. That's what I'm predicting.
Cool. So I would kind of agree with you on that, because obviously, as I've mentioned on the show a few times before, I've really cut down the amount that I drink. It got to the point where I was drinking way too much, and so I've consciously made an effort to change that as well. And on a show a few weeks ago, we were looking at some of the non-alcoholic and low-alcohol options, including Strike, which sucks, and also the Hayman's Small Gin up there, which is awesome. And we had the 3 Spirit stuff on as well, which is pretty good. Interesting, but not kind of replicating anything really alcoholic. What I haven't found is anyone that can do something that resembles a gin that's non-alcoholic. It seems like you actually need the alcohol to extract that juniper flavour. because nobody seems to be able to do something that tastes remotely like a gin without alcohol. Although I think is it Temperance that do like a alcohol-free gin and tonic that's kind of bottled like a tonic water. I think there's a few things out there that I've not tried yet, but that's something that I would like to try as well. So yeah, I can completely see that becoming a thing, because I mean I was out on Christmas Day drinking Beck's Blue, which is awful alcohol-free beer, but it was the one that the pub had and it was fine. There's stuff like Adnam's Ghost Ship out there. I don't know if you've tried that. That's quite good.
Yeah.
Which Wetherspoons are doing now. You know?
I've personally never been a fan of like non-alcoholic versions of alcoholic things. Like, to me, if you're not drinking, then amazing. Like, I like beer and I love to sit and have a beer, but if I can't have a beer, I am quite happy to have one of the ranges of whatever interesting soft drinks somewhere has. Like, yeah, like I personally wouldn't need, if I'm not drinking gin, I'm comfortable enough to have a lemonade. And I understand why. I think there is a lot of social pressure on people, whereas it's quite hard to put social pressure onto people like us because we know more about drinks than the average punter. So we don't really get the pressure in the same way. Yeah. But yeah, for me personally, I would much rather have a craft soda, you know, a night rather than an alcohol-free beer.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, the iced teas, stuff like that, I really like.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, sometimes I just I fancy the flavour of a beer and I don't want to drink alcohol. So yeah, I think there's a place for them. With the gin and tonic things, again, if people want to kind of replicate a drink that they have with alcohol on a night out without, I think there's a place for it. Whether it's something that's actually a market that's worth addressing, I don't know.
Yeah.
In terms of my predictions for this year, and this is something that we've discussed in the past, and I think I've done a podcast on as well, I think bartenders are going to start making drinks that at least taste or appear more mainstream. I think a lot of bartenders need to get their egos out of the way of their menus, because I think that is a big issue, where bartenders are literally creating a menu to impress other bartenders rather than because it's what the guests actually are demanding. Guests are not as well educated on flavours as bartenders, and there's every reason that we should be putting new and interesting flavours out there, but maybe only one per drink, so that a guest can kind of identify what that ingredient's giving to a drink, and certainly having at least 3 or 4 options on a menu where people will be able to recognise every ingredient or every flavour that should be in there. From my point of view, at least. What do you think, Sam?
I think my take on that is, yes, I think what bartenders need to do is, from my point of view, is swallow their pride on when it comes to putting things like, I remember when I opened my bar 2 years ago, I got questioned by 5 or 6 people as to why we had a porn star martini on the menu. And all of them, when I said because people want them, they said, why don't you make a variation of it? And I was like, because if you're going into a bar to order a porn star martini, you don't want a variation of it. Like, since we have opened, we have probably 75% of the time had a coffee drink on the menu. Now, some of them have been variations of an espresso martini. Some of them have just been a drink that contains coffee, and that's the only link to the espresso martini it has. Whether it was coffee bitters or whatever, and it just doesn't matter when somebody says, do you do espresso martinis, which is a question we get all the time. And I'm like, yes, we do. We can do a classic one, or we have this on the menu, which is a variation, blah, blah. They always just say, I'll have the classic. Because people are creatures of habit, and they will do what they're comfortable with. Some people will say, what is it? I'll try it. But I'd say, it's less rare. I know I'd say my bar gets quite a good discerning drinker. However, not everybody is a discerning drinker, and some people just want what they know. So I think bartenders are going to go more down the route of going, do you know what? If we have to have an espresso martini because that's what people want, then we'll make a good one. Mm-hmm. Just be a good classic. And that's my opinion for the Porn Star Martini. Now, I've met the owner of the Porn Star Martini, Douglas, multiple times. We get on really well. I don't understand why I wouldn't have that drink as an option for people. Now, if that monopolizes your menu and nobody else orders anything else, then that's probably because what you're putting out there isn't what your customers want. And I think by reducing the number of sweet fruity options, then either you'll just not please the customers you're getting in, but that depends on your marketing, or you're not marketing to get the right people in.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think, your menu should fit the clientele that you want in the bar, not what your head bartender wants to sell. Like, the bartender should be creating the right drinks for the customers. Now, if you aren't getting the wrong customers into your bar, so for instance, my bar is a quiet sit-down cocktail place, and occasionally we have large groups of young clients who are wanting a party, and that isn't our vibe. And that isn't necessarily because we've marketed it wrong, but it's probably because they've saw us on a list somewhere and they've come expecting the wrong thing. And they probably don't have the best time ever, but they leave and they probably don't come back. But that's not the end of the world, because that's not the kind of bar we want. And then they might come back when they're having a date. So I think
when they're in the mood for what you have got.
Yeah, and I think that there's nothing wrong with having those drinks options available if that's the clientele you're getting. But I think that bars will get rid of that stigma of you can't have these drinks on your menu, especially good bars. And I just hope to God that people stop doing vanilla and passion fruit flavored drinks that aren't porn stars. Just do a porn star.
Yeah.
Stop ripping it off. Just try and recreate that fame. Just do a different one.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, I think there's always a place for what your customers want, and I think what you said about creating a drink list for the kind of people that you want to come in is great, as long as there's enough people that want what you want to create. So I think you have to kind of bear in mind, especially if you're in a smaller market. We're lucky, we're in Birmingham, one of the second biggest city in the UK. So we've got quite a wide variety of people coming out to drink, and so we can afford to be a little bit more choosy with who we bring in. If you're in a small market, if you're in a town with maybe 2 or 3 good quality bars, you might need to be a little bit more mainstream in your drinks, because there aren't as many people that are in that town in total that want boozy stirred down drinks, if that's the kind of customer you're trying to bring in. So I think that's the other thing to bear in mind is you can be as choosy as you want, but the smaller you make your niche, the less people you're gonna appeal to. So don't expect to be as busy as a nightclub and only sell Negronis.
I think going off that as well, I don't think this will happen, because if it would have happened by now. And this isn't like a movement or an idea. It's just that I don't think that those concepts have to be mutually exclusive. Like, there's no reason you can't have a Clover Club on your menu, or what, back in the 90s you'd have called a Raspberry Martini. Like, there's no reason you can't have these drinks on your menu, but make them in a way that makes the bar... We've had this discussion multiple times.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's no reason that you can't put these drinks on the menu and make them in a way that, one, keeps the bartenders happy because they believe that they're using interesting, cool craft ingredients, but they come across to the consumer in a way that the consumers are happy. So, for instance, take the Clover Club as an example. You could easily do a raspberry and watermelon Clover Club, but you're using I don't think it exists, but if it did, like a watermelon brandy, eau de vie, and that adds a little bit of watermelon-y flavour. It's got a couple mils of it in the drink. The consumer doesn't care. All they need to see is that it's got the flavour watermelon in. That will keep them happy. And then if people are asking questions, you can give them the full information about how it's made, what it is. If you just rip, using raspberry vodka, watermelon, lemon, and I don't know, guess some kind of egg or whatever, that will keep the customers happy. They'll be really happy to buy it. They'll hopefully really enjoy the drink if you've made it well enough. And yet the bartender is getting to introduce people to this in a way that's a bit more softer to them. So there's no reason that it has to be Negronis or porn stars. There can be a midway that is made that I think keeps both parties happy. I just think that people, without being derogatory to bartenders, I just don't think they're creative enough to think of these solutions. They just go, I want to do a super strong, boozy, stirred down drink, when actually my customers want
some.
Yeah, and I think like people want. That's what, if you are in a bar that wants fruity stuff, and you as the bartender want to feel more, I don't
crafty.
know. Yeah, then do your research, find the ingredients that work. As far as classics go as well, Clover Club's probably a great example of something that you can pretty much rip straight out of a classic cocktail book, and it will taste great on any menu. Because it fits the palette of what we're drinking, what consumers are drinking nowadays. So if you are writing, if you are introducing classics, say, for the first time, try a load of them, like a Saturn. That's another great classic cocktail that's very underrepresented, that fits the modern palette of today. So you can introduce your customers to these cool classic cocktails that also taste good to them.
Do you want to just run us down what's in a Saturn for anyone that doesn't know that one? Because it's a lot less well known.
Do you know what? I can't remember. It was Luke, my head bar manager, that actually introduced me to it. He was like, we should definitely make one of these. It's dry gin, velvet falernum, orgeat, some kind of passion fruit and lemon.
Oh, tiki.
Yeah. Fantastic classic cocktail. Again, fairly new to me. It's one of them that I've heard of years ago but never tried, because I assumed it was going to be something like a Martinez or something random.
Yeah.
But tried that, and absolutely delicious. And that is, Luke made one. I tried it. I was like, oh, where's this been for years? And it's like, that would be great on any menu nowadays, because it's passion fruit and gin.
Yeah,
so
100%. Yeah, so I mean, we'll get the recipe for this.
Yeah, there are other options out there, and bartenders just need to start start thinking, how can they please themselves and customers?
Mm-hmm.
If that is your prerogative, that you want to make drinks that you're proud of, as well as your customers will enjoy drinking, how can you merge them together and do both? It is doable, absolutely.
Cool. So kind of curating a drinks menu more than creating drinks for a menu, as much as anything. So kind of digging a little bit deeper into stuff that exists already.
Yes and no. Again, that was just an example. Cause, a lot of bars don't have any classic cocktails on their menu, and if they do, they're probably things like a Tom Collins.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no reason you can't. When you write a classic cocktail menu, it doesn't have to be martinis, old fashions, and Negronis, which I think is what a lot of younger bartenders think they need to be doing.
Yeah.
Because those drinks are harder to drink, and therefore they get more respect by drinking them, I guess. But I didn't know about a Saturn until a couple of weeks ago, and I've been doing this 10 years. So clearly there's a lot more out there, and there's probably bartenders that are going, how do you not know a Saturn? But there's definitely stuff out there. We just need to find it.
Yeah, 100%. So one more trend that I think might be one that comes up, and I haven't heard many people talking about it, although it's probably been out there a little bit, is well, actually there's two. So the first one is low-calorie mixers. I know we've got low-cal tonics, they exist. However, there's all of these huge range now of tonic waters that have different flavours to them, and you can basically only get them in full sugar versions. So I think that is something that's someone's going to come out with a low-calorie range of flavoured tonics, and that's going to fill a nice niche for people. I think Monin's already come out with a zero-calorie sugar syrup, like a zero-calorie simple syrup, essentially.
Yeah, I think I've heard that for a while.
Yeah, so I think we might see some more low-calorie or no-calorie syrups come in, and same with tonics and stuff like that. Obviously, in the UK, we've had the sugar taxes come in that's sort of battered Coca-Cola and Pepsi with their regular stuff, which is why most bars are now stocking Max or Zero or whatever instead of the full sugar versions. So there's that one, and then the other thing that I just got in mind was bars starting to use more... I kind of go back away from house-made ingredients as much and using good quality commercial versions of stuff like orgeat syrups. Now in the UK, orgeats orgeat syrup is one of those ones that I don't know of any bars that make their own, although whenever we listen to the stuff from the States, everyone's talking about, oh, you can't use any commercial syrups, you can't use commercial grenadine, you can't use commercial orgeat, you can't use... Like, guys, think about how much time it costs you to make this stuff, and if you can find one that's 90% as good and costs you about the same in ingredients, then, like, make your life easier, make your bar more consistent, and, like, the amount of headaches that you will take out will actually be a massive win for you, I think. What do you think, Sam? I could be way off the base with that one.
No, I think I personally will only make a homemade ingredient if I can't find something on the market that's better, because people spend their lives doing this stuff. And yes, some companies will just have huge ranges of every flavour, and 6 of those 10 flavours will be rubbish. Do you know what I mean? Because that's not... They don't know how to do it better, or whatever the reasons are. But like, I think you go. So with orgeat, for example, there are some fantastic brands out there in the UK, and I don't know if we're spoiled because most of our we get a lot from Italy and France, who are renowned for making things very well.
Mm-hmm. Extracting flavours, it's the pastry chefs, isn't it?
Yeah, they have a lot of history in doing this stuff. So we're quite lucky, and I'm assuming that a lot of that stuff makes it to the States. It'd be weird if it didn't, but again, they have different laws for products and stuff. So, for me though, I always try everything I can, because you just never know. Like, I think that concept of all raspberry syrups taste the same is just so wrong nowadays. Like 10 years ago, that's what most people thought. You bought the brand that you knew back then. 10 years ago, everybody was buying Monin syrups because that was the brand. Yep. It was the one you could trust them because you knew they were good, but you probably didn't have that availability to that many other ones. Whereas nowadays, especially within in the UK, we have availability of it's so easy to get hold of stuff nowadays. There's so many small companies popping up. They're doing really good stuff. The Bristol Syrup Company are a perfect example of a small company that is absolutely killing it.
Yeah,
their products are fantastic, and it's just like, I will sit there and try their entire range of syrups, and that sounds so weird to sit there and try a range of syrups, but some of them I don't love. Some of them I literally am trying to base whole drinks on our menu around this syrup because the flavour in that syrup is so phenomenal. So yeah, I think I know for a fact I will never try and make a passion fruit syrup in my life because I've tried 3 or 4 that were fantastic.
Yeah.
But I think bartenders like the idea of making stuff themselves rather than, for me...
They think it's cheating otherwise.
Yeah, I get more excited telling a customer about this amazing product that they can then go and buy if they wanted, rather than going, no, I make this, no, you can't have it. Like... We've had a lot of our regulars who have asked to recreate our cocktails at home because we have a 6-month menu. They go off the menu, and some bars wouldn't give out their recipes. Me personally, I'm like, look, if they want to drink my drinks at home, that only builds my brand.
Yeah, 100%.
So, and a couple of them, it's been a homemade ingredient. And I'm like, look, I could give you the recipe, but, between us, me and Luke, we know exactly when to pull out the ingredients. We know exactly what we want it to do. We know how we wash them. We know how, whatever it is we're doing. I was like, so you can try and make it, but it's probably not going to be the same.
Yeah.
So it does devalue it, whereas some people will keep that to themselves. Whereas I'd rather just say, this is the one you want to buy. It's from this producer in this place. They make it like this. So rather than the wow being, oh, they made it themselves, the wow is, oh, they've actually checked everything on the market. They know what they're talking about. They've chosen the best. I don't think customers look down on you buying stuff in because we buy in everything.
Yeah. Well, actually, from that point of view, I think that openness might become another trend for this year, is actually just being a lot more upfront and honest with your guests about what's in the drinks, how you source them, where things have come from, even the cost of some of the stuff that goes in. Obviously, it's not going to come down to, well, this is the cost price of the drink, and this is what we add on, and this is what we spend on our rates or whatever. but more to the point of sharing your recipes with your customers so that they can do this sort of thing at home, because you are just building your brand further by doing it.
Yeah, well, there was a bar in London whose name I forget. I stayed at the hotel. It was Matt Wiley's venue before he had Scout.
Mm-hmm.
It's not there anymore. Can't remember. Someone will find it. That venue, so their whole menu, every ingredient of everything, because they made loads in house, because they had like all the equipment, rotor wrap, centrifuge, the lot, and they just wrote down every single ingredient and how they made it, down to timings, recipes, temperatures, mils, grams, everything was all written down, so that you could literally take essentially their menu and reconstruct everything at home. Because they and that was maybe 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And because they were just like, why would we hide this? Because I think it's the same that I agree. Is like, if you're trying to compete with the bars around you, you'll never be the best, because you're trying to be better than next door. Whereas if you're trying to be like, I don't compete with any bar in Birmingham. I don't sit there and think to myself, that bar down the road's doing this, we need to do something better. Now, I do look to do things that aren't available in the area. So what can we provide that's a different service? But I'm not trying to go, oh, they've done this drink, therefore we need to do a smoky drink as well and make it better.
Yeah.
I look at, where do we want to be? I think, reach for the moon and you'll get a lot further than if you reach lower, kind of thing.
Yeah, man.
I think openness is a big part of that. All that's going to happen is people are going to try and recreate what you're doing. And once, imitation is the best form of flattery. Once you establish yourself as being the open and honest one, we tell everybody, I don't have any secrets at my bar about how we make drinks. I'll tell anybody, bartenders, how we make our drinks, what ingredients we use, how we, source stuff. Whereas I know some bartenders in our local area who will spin you a story of how they made something, and actually it's just a apple crumbled flavored MSK droplet that they put into a syrup.
Yeah.
But I think openness is definitely going to become more and more available. It's whether or not openness becomes more available. I think it become more prominent within the industry. I'm not sure if it will translate to customers as much.
I think the bars that do will win by doing it.
I agree.
Cool, so that's our predictions for 2020 and beyond. Sam, thank you so much for joining us this week. Where can people find you on the internet, and what would you like them to do?
Find me on Instagram at Bolton on Booze. You can see me drinking, making ramen apparently every week now, which is what I enjoy.
Oh, yeah.
Find me there, or follow my bar at Vanguard Bar JQ on Facebook, or the Modern Mead Co on Facebook, Instagram. If you are interested in mead and cocktails, those are your places to go.
Absolutely. And you can find me at BartenderHQ on Facebook and Twitter, BartenderHQ Pics on Instagram, and BartenderHQ on TikTok. So before we completely lose Sam into the darkness, we will wrap this one up, and we will see you on next week's show in 2020. Catch you next time, guys.